Okay, greetings from Bangkok and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to tackle a topic that everybody knows about, but nobody wants to speak out about it. Well, on my channel, I speak out about things. And today we're going to talk about the wealth gap, not only in Southeast Asia, but specifically in the Philippines.
The gap between rich and poor is widening in Asia. And in the Philippines, one of the most unequal societies in Southeast Asia, inequality has turned to anger.
There is anger against corruption, but at the core of it, that's anger on inequality.
There's absolutely no point for billionaires to exist if you think about it, because why are there people having that much amount of money when there are people who can barely afford to eat once a day? And the idea of eating 3 times becomes luxury for them.
The gap between the rich and poor is widening in Asia. It reported that 60 to 77% of national income went to the top 10% of Asians, while the poorest half received 12 to 15%. In the Philippines, nearly 6 in 10 Filipinos live in poverty or struggle with low pay. Meanwhile, about 17% of the national income went to the top 1% of earners, more than the bottom half combined. In 2025, the Philippine economy is projected to grow between 5.2 to 5.6%. Yet, in one survey, more than half of Filipino families, around 55%, said they felt poor. Last year, the 50 wealthiest Filipinos saw their fortunes swell by 6% to $86 billion. That's about 1/6 of the entire economy.
Power and wealth is concentrated in some surnames. And you would see this every year. There's a publication of the richest persons and families in the Philippines. And these are the same names year after year. Families were able to control the lands, the estates, the means of production.
You have now the distinct elite class, which is actually a continuation from the pre-colonial elites of the tribal chiefs. And when the Spaniards arrived and created the different pueblos or towns across the country in the different provinces, they retained the chiefs as the town leaders, called the principalia. And their role was to collect tribute from the local population.
Spanish rule began in 1565. It spanned more than 3 centuries, and over that time, the class pyramid was refined and calcified.
Government officials who mostly stayed in the capital in Manila, they were known as peninsulares, who considered themselves a class above the Spaniards born in the Philippines called insulares. They intermarried with the local population, mostly with descendants of the Principalia. As they got more descendants, they became the mestizo class. The native Filipinos were referred to by the Spaniards as Indios. Historically, wealth had been concentrated, in the hands of an elite who eventually evolved into an oligarchy that we have now.
In fact, if you look at the top 100 companies in the Philippines, you'll probably see that many of those companies are family-owned conglomerates that are actually part of this elite.
They all have their own banks. They all have their own malls. You can think of them as islands, if you will, where they control their own mini economies within the Philippine economy.
Spanish rule ended in 1898. The Americans instituted a new form of government in the Philippines, modeled after their own. Political power was now up for grabs.
If you look at the Senate and the Congress, you'd see power concentrated in some siblings, parent and child, cousins.
The main cause of inequalities in any society would be the greed of those that are on top, thinking that they deserve this. They can take for themselves, and it's theirs to keep. If you were a poor Filipino, the easiest way to live through life and to journey throughout this country is to just accept it. Because it would be a lot more tiring, frustrating, demoralizing to even fight, to even try to fight, and not have anything in return.
Arlaika Campanas is 19. She moved into this room in Bulacan 5 years ago with her parents, sibling, niece and nephew. They did so after being evicted from their old home in Sitio Quince, a fishing community on the coast of Manila Bay.
Lugar po namin, tas sabi po, paalisin daw po lahat ng tao doon, pero babayaran naman daw po.
The coastal community that had long sheltered families of fisherfolk is now a construction site for the new Manila International Airport, a $12.5 billion project led by one of the country's biggest conglomerates, San Miguel Corporation. The new development promises to improve connectivity, boost economic growth, and create more than 1 million jobs. But the mega project is an example of the Philippines' dilemma when it comes to inequality. Who benefits and who feels left out?
Whenever you build infrastructures, you demolish urban poor communities. So where do you put these people?
For losing their homes, families were compensated between $1,700 and $2,500. For Arlaika's family, it was $85.
Philippines is basically an agriculture country. More than 70% are farmers. So a lot of farmers up to now are landless.
Only 1 in 5 Filipino farmers owns the land they till. But land is more than a physical asset here. It's tied to power, a legacy of Spanish rule, where many farmers lost their land to the ruling elites.
The urban centers, the suburban centers, are actually named after families, landed families, called Ayala Center, Araneta Center, Ortiga Center, etc., etc. So these are concentrated to old families and new land developers. So that's how tightly concentrated, and in that sense, very class-based land is in the urban areas. And I would argue all over the Philippines as well.
Meanwhile, multiple studies show that natural disasters disproportionately impact the poor. Real estate prices, especially in Manila, climbed since COVID, though prices have come down more recently. Though the Philippines had been doing well with poverty reduction, the pandemic would set back these efforts. This is an indication that the initial pandemic recovery did not benefit the lower rungs of society, and they're playing catch-up. With the change in her family's circumstances, education may have slipped out of reach for Arlaika. She had to leave school, along with her dream of college and a better life. Education is traditionally seen as a way out of the poverty cycle, a crucial step up the economic ladder. But for millions of young Filipinos, even that path may no longer be viable.
I'm currently 25 years old. During the pandemic, of course, livelihood opportunities for my parents before got caught. My father was a tricycle driver and my mother has no job. They even told me that someone from us 3 kids would have to stop going to school. Education is important, and I think that's how I get into sex work. I see sex work like as an opportunity for me to get more money to sustain myself so that my parents would only think about my other siblings.
Elio studies social work at a public university in Manila. Classes by day, vice work by night. For those in the highest income group, almost half attain higher education. But if your family is in the bottom 10%, only 17% reach those qualifications. An increasing number of university graduates are unemployed. In June 2025, almost 4 in 10 of the unemployed are college graduates. In January last year, only 13% of applicants were hired in job fairs held by the Labor and Employment Department. Most hires were for low-skilled jobs that do not require a college degree. Furthermore, some experts claim that the pandemic may have set students back by 2 to 3 years, with the poor more adversely impacted. Elio managed to pull through this difficult period and entered university. However, he has chosen a degree that is not considered lucrative.
If I graduate social work, I can do development work, other fields of social work, like for example, corporate social work. They said that they have a high paying grade.
Notoriously, we have a 90% learning poverty rate, one of the highest in Southeast Asia. And that only means that 9 out of 10 school children are not able to understand what they are reading. So we have an education crisis here in the Philippines, which has a massive implication on inequality of opportunities, especially.
The government introduced a tuition-free program for all state universities and colleges in 2017. But critics say that without means testing, the rich have availed themselves of these spaces, crowding out the poor.
Well, of course, the rich is crowding out the poor from free college tuition. The rich loves anything free, and they will manipulate the system to make sure they get anything and everything free, or at least low cost. In fact, they will make sure that the poor isn't even aware of these opportunities. The same thing happens in my home country, in the US, and the same thing happens in most countries across the world.
Nearly 4 in 10 college students in the Philippines drop out before they can complete. At the same time, help for the poorest has been shrinking. Their share of education subsidies fell from 74% in 2018 to 31% in 2022.
Have to think or enter other opportunities in order for you to get money. I found a full-time job at Quezon City and also doing sex work on the side.
Selling his body is risky, as the Philippines has the highest HIV infection rate in Southeast Asia. Beginning in September, thousands took to the streets across the Philippines in protests. Ostensibly, the outcry was over corruption involving flood control projects. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. had earlier revealed that over 100 billion pesos, or around $1.7 billion, could be lost to graft.
There is anger against corruption, but at the core of it, that's anger on inequality. Right now,
The older people have just sort of accepted that the Philippines is poor, but the young people are now like challenging the status quo. The idea of us being poor. And the Philippines is not poor, it's plundered. It's stolen of. It's robbed.
Inequality in the Philippines is by design. The policies that affect majority or 99% of Filipinos are built to continue to keep them poor. So we have to pass laws that break up political dynasties or make sure that they don't run for office again and again.
You know, what she's saying sounds very idealistic, but it's contradicted by the information earlier in the video where the rich elitists in the Philippines place their families and acquaintances in political office. So would putting in new blood in political office really make a difference? Or could you even do it? Because these wealthy individuals, these elitists, they really have control and power. And from everything that I've observed, I cannot see any true reforms. Yes, if there were politicians who were willing to do the right thing and improve education so that their young people can get decent jobs, then that would be wonderful. But unfortunately, in the Philippines, for the most part at least, that is not possible because the politicians are owned by the big corporations and the elitists. It's the same thing in the U.S. The difference here is in the Philippines, the harm caused to the everyday Filipino is much more pronounced because, as I've said in previous videos, even the poorest U.S. American has more money in their pocket than the poorest Filipino.
Thanks to social media, inequality in the Philippines is more visible than ever. Prior to the September protests, the hashtag #NepoBabies trended online. It described posts by children of wealthy families flaunting their riches on the internet.
Showing off that she spent thousands of dollars on just one meal, and whereas many Filipinos will not be able to see that income in maybe 1 or 2 years. And that has spurred the anger of, especially if our young, that this is too much for them, and they're getting really irritated that why are we paying these taxes and yet we're not getting what we gave government.
For its part, the government vowed to crack down on corruption.
Yeah, sure. I bet Filipinos all across the country would laugh at such a statement. Even those engaged in corruption would laugh at such a statement. So let's be real. I'm not trying to slam down on the Philippines, but everybody knows that the place has been corrupt for many, many decades. I'm just keeping things honest and real.
The Marcos Jr. administration launched a nationwide audit of flood control projects and set up an independent probe body. Several people linked to the scandal were detained late last year.
So I've spoken about this flood control scandal before, as have many other YouTubers. Now, it's good that it's being brought into light because scandal and corruption has been hidden for many decades. So it's good that people are talking about this. I think it's mainly because the young people are spreading this story across social media. So good on them. But I wonder if anybody would really be held accountable, and will the money be recovered that they stole from the Filipinos? That's what I would like to see. Accountability, retribution, and punishment.
In November, hundreds of thousands continued to take to the streets in demonstrations organized by religious groups. So, inequality could continue to be a pressing issue in the new year, and perhaps well into the next election cycle in 2028.
I think I'm gonna see a better Philippines in my lifetime, if I'm being perfectly honest. If in this lifetime we weren't able to get the results that we want, at least we're paving the way for my daughter, at least.
As for Alaika, she has a plan to break the cycle of poverty by joining the military and earning a stable income.
Ang gusto ko po is magkaroon po ng sariling bahay po yung magulang ko, yung malayo po sa bahay.
You know, I said in my last video that I want Filipinos to win. I want the best for the Filipino people. You know, I have a soft heart despite me having a harsh exterior. Deep down inside, I care about the well-being of people. And wherever I travel in this world, I want to connect and make sure that the people in that country are doing okay. You know, there's only so much I can do. I'm just one guy, but at least I can post content online, sharing with the rest of the world what's going on in that country. I mean, that was the whole purpose of me starting this YouTube channel. I wanted to share with the rest of the world my exploits, my experiences in the Philippines. You know, I'm only a visitor here. I'm a guest in this country. So it would be out of line for me to try to reach out to politicians or leaders and convince them to make changes so that the everyday Filipino can earn a living wage. In fact, I think it's illegal for foreigners to even engage in politics or political subjects. All I'll continue to do is share my experiences in the Philippines in the hopes that you guys can share my content on your social media. And if you haven't already done so, consider subscribing and hit like because it helps in the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, cheers.
Pinoy!